it looks like the United States is going to bail out Javier Milei and the Argentinian economy amid a slump in their market. So Juan David Rojas, a writer at Compact, who has a new story on this, a great news story on this with the headline, Trouble in Libertarian Paradise over at Compact, joins us now. Juan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of news actually on this front. Just before we were recording with you, Juan, this morning, we heard more from Scott Bessent about what this potential bailout, we can put the first tear sheet up on the screen, that's been publicly in the works that we've been brought in on over the last couple of days, is going to, what that's actually going to look like. This is a great Financial Times rundown of what actually happened. It starts by saying, quote, less than 6 months ago, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was in Buenos Aires congratulating President Javier Milei for bringing Argentina back from the precipice as the Libertarian secured more than $40 billion in loans from the IMF and multilateral lenders to bolster his government. Now, with political and economic missteps sparking panic in Argentina's markets, the South American nation is once again on the brink, and the Trump administration is preparing to bail out its ideological ally. So, Juan, tell us what we learned this morning from Scott Bessent about what that bailout is going to look like.
Yeah, Bessent announced this morning that the Treasury is going to provide a $20 billion swap line to Argentina's central bank. Basically, Argentina's central bank will get a loan in dollars that they will have to pay back to the United States, which is extremely important because last week they spent over $1 billion of the $20 billion they have left in their foreign reserves defending the peso because it lost like a third of its value in the past month.
So let's actually back up on that note and explain what is the crisis that they're facing right now and what triggered this moment where, you know, they're in need potentially of a U.S. bailout.
Yeah, so over the past 50 years, really the one constant of all of Argentina's economic problems is the dollar. For our purposes, specifically the fact that the peso, Argentina's currency, is pegged to the dollar. What that means is that the government sets a margin within which the peso will float relative to the dollar around like 1,000 something pesos for every dollar. And the problem with this is that you become completely beholden to the whims of investors that can be extremely fickle, and also the amount of dollars that your central bank has in its foreign reserves, because that's how you maintain that conversion between those two currencies. And if there's some kind of panic like what just happened, you need to spend all of your foreign reserves in order to keep that value of the peso. And so Milei, when he came in, said, okay, I'm going to fix this. Through libertarianism, I'm going to get government out of the way. I'm going to get rid of this peg and everything's going to be great. Wow. So he took office in December of 2023 and did exactly that. He'd massively devalued the peso. It lost like 50% of its value overnight. And this caused inflation to skyrocket. Went from like 150% to like 300%. This makes perfect sense because if your currency loses a ton of its buying power overnight, well, then prices are going to shoot up. And so he said, whoops, okay, what do I do now? People elected me to control inflation. Okay, so he did exactly what his predecessors were doing. He restored the peg to the peso, and this worked. The peso over the course of the next few months in 2024 recovered and even exceeded its previous peak. See, the problem with pegging your currency to the dollar in the case of a country like Argentina, where your currency has zero credibility, is that it's just extremely overvalued relative to its actual worth and the broader value of your economy. So anyway, Milei, inflation started to go down, and Milei says, oh, see, this is because libertarianism works. We can talk about that. There's some details, whether or not some of what he's done austerity-wise would have been worth it in the long run. But anyway, inflation by the end of 2024 fell from like 300% to around 30%. Then in 2025, he started to have a couple of setbacks. There was this big corruption scandal with his sister, who's also his chief of staff. There were recordings suggesting that she was taking bribes. The Congress passed some spending increases that he vetoed, and then Congress overrode his veto. And then what really set things off was that a week ago, Buenos Aires, the country's most important province, held provincial elections where Milei's party got destroyed, lost by like 13 points, something like that. And this really caused investors to panic. because they saw it as a sign that the opposition Peronists that are left-wing were going to take control of the Congress next month in midterm elections. And so this caused, in Milei's words, a full market panic. And the peso, like I said, lost like a third of its value. The central bank spent $1 billion in just 3 days. It purportedly only has $20 billion left in reserve, which is really the exact amount that the IMF gave Argentina in January. Argentina is the single largest recipient of IMF loans in history. I saw something that in the past 30 years of the $200 billion that that the IMF has given out, Argentina's gotten a third of that. So it's really crazy.
Wow.
Let's take a listen. I want to get your reaction to this, actually, to what Donald Trump said about Milei while he was in New York for the United Nations General Assembly.
And to the people of Argentina, we're backing him 100%. We think he's done a fantastic job. He, like us, inherited a mess, and what he's done to fix it is good. And Scott is working with their country so that they can get good debt and all of the things that you need to make Argentina great again. So it's an honor for me to endorse the president and the future president of Argentina. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's you.
So he's sitting astride Milei there alongside Scott Bessent and Marco Rubio. Now, Juan, an interesting question based on everything you just said is to what extent the uncertainty that Milei has faced in 2025 is downstream of some of the uncertainty that Donald Trump has injected into the global economy from his economic policies. Is there a kind of circular way that Trump is bailing out Milei from a situation that he, in some sense, stoked in the Argentinian economy? Am I sounding crazy? Is there a connection there at all?
You know what? I hadn't thought about that. It's a good question. I guess, maybe investors are a bit more skittish than they would be otherwise. But I would say that generally that's not the case. There is one thing that did like when Milei took power in 2023. One thing is that's when the Fed raised interest rates, and Argentina has unfortunately way too much of its debt in dollars. Again, there's this circular problem with the dollar, and so when interest rates go up, well, interest payments on your debt also go up, and that caused Argentina's debt to skyrocket. So, and that honestly, I would say is a big part of what got Milei elected.
Interesting. Could you tell me a little bit more? First of all, I wanted to opine on how the support of Milei just reveals how content-free Trumpism is, because it's not like allegedly they are not ideologically the same. But since Milei will be a good little boy and do whatever the U.S. wants him to, then he gets, favored status regardless of his, because I think there's a lazy assumption that they're sort of like closely ideologically aligned. And on some levels, yes, but I'm sure you could lay out even better than I could, like on a lot of levels, no. But I was also curious what did happen in that Buenos Aires election. Was it surprising that his party suffered such a defeat? What are people reading into, like the message that is being sent by voters, and what are they unhappy with, under Milei?
Sorry, remind me the first part of the question.
Just you can just weigh in on the second part. The first part was how Trump and Milei are not
theoretically
really
that's right. No,
ideological
I do
allies.
want to talk about
the second part is just about the Buenos Aires elections. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Trump really, what Trump is like a Gilded Age Republican, kind of. Like it's protectionism abroad and free marketeerism at home. And Milei is just the free marketeerism everywhere. So Trump is a huge protectionist, the tariffs, all that. Milei hates tariffs. So in that way, they're extremely different. But as far as like Doge and, the deregulation, all of that, they're pretty simpatico. Really, I actually do see a lot of this. Well, on the one hand, Trump, he really just loves anyone who says good things about him. But on the other hand, geopolitically, and it's not really that Argentina like actually offers any, like I called it moral support. Milei really has prostrated himself before like Washington, and he supports all of our foreign wars, Ukraine, Israel, and also what we're doing now in Venezuela and, the sanctions regime against Cuba, Nicaragua, etc. As far as that election in Buenos Aires, To be fair, Buenos Aires is a bastion of Peronism, the opposition. And so he was expected to lose there, but not by as much as he did. Lost by like 13 points. And the polls showed him as being more competitive. And now he started to slide in these midterm elections. His party has a minority in both chambers of Congress, though there's like a couple of other parties that are kind of allied with him. But the fear, like I said now, is that the Peronists will be able to take back control. As far as what the broader population thinks, all things considered, Milei's approval rating is still pretty good, though his disapproval has gone up a lot. And the thing is, his austerity regime has caused this horrible economic depression in the country. Something like 40% of the country is living in poverty. On the other hand, you can make the case that he has managed to bring down some of Argentina's debt, which is really out of control before he took office. So I'm not sympathetic to Milei or libertarianism, but I'm trying to give you the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But people are just kind of saying it's like, okay, inflation has come down some, although it's misleading how the financial press reports this, because they've like to cite the monthly figure of inflation that's gone down to like 2%, has stagnated at 2% for a while now. And the thing is, for instance, here in the US, when we talk about monthly inflation, we're still talking about monthly inflation with respect to the annual figure. So if you look at annual inflation in Argentina, it's still at like 30%, which is what it was in like 2021 under the previous government, and it's still pretty bad. So people want to see results. They still kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because they were promised like a V-shaped recovery, that things would get worse and then get better. And the opposition, there's kind of a similar situation here with the Democrats. They're soul searching. There's like different wings that are like fighting each other. And we could talk about that. It's interesting.
Well, last question for me actually is just what might this do to the situation in Argentina? Sort of like the obvious question on the table is how does a U.S. bailout? It's sort of funny to talk about a libertarian experiment being bailed out by the United States. I mean, it's obviously not funny.
And the IMF.
Yeah, and the IMF. Yes, I was thinking that too. It's just amusing. But what could we see in the months to come with this bailout as it will influence the Argentinian economy?
So it seems that it'll keep them afloat. Markets have rallied. And those dollars really will be vital for the central bank and also paying back Argentina's debts. There's a broader conversation, like if we go back further, because they first started pegging the dollar to the peso in the 90s. And Argentina just has these recurring crises. If we go back further, the issue is also that they take on too much debt in dollars. And that's a huge problem. If you borrow in your own currency, you can get way more in debt than otherwise. Just look at us. We have this huge national debt, but thankfully it's in our own currency, and which also happens to be the world's reserve currency, which means that countries like Argentina need it to stay afloat. But so Argentina, like they amass so much debt in dollars, they're just hostage to what the Fed does. If they raise interest rates, their debt explodes. If investors pull their money, they have a currency crisis. And they end up just kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. They'll get one IMF loan to pay back another IMF loan. They'll get $1 billion from Qatar to pay back the IMF. They'll get $20 billion from Trump to pay back the IMF. So it's, probably we'll eventually see some sort of collapse. But this really was vital. Like there was, it's not even that there was a risk. The country was going to spiral into an inflationary chaos again if Trump hadn't intervened.
Well, we definitely recommend everyone go and read your piece over at Compact Mag. We'll put the link in the description. And as always, Juan, great to have your insights. Really useful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.